Tiffany, I'm extremely disappointed in you. This is a joke to you. Do you know that you had a possibility to win? But you're not— Stop it! I was rooting for you! We were all rooting for you! How dare you!
When someone appears in front of a camera, whether to deliver the news, do an interview, or be interviewed, it is super important that they are composed and calm. But news reporters and celebrities are also human with real human emotions, so even though they try their best, sometimes they get fed up, angry, and really frustrated. So today we're going to take a look at some of the craziest times celebrities and news personalities had angry outbursts on live TV. But before that, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We will be giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or a MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. First, we have CNN anchor Anderson Cooper absolutely losing it while interviewing former convict and Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Rod attempted to clear his name off of corruption charges and branded himself as a political prisoner. Cooper tried to listen as courteously as he could, but he could not let it pass when Blagojevich likened himself to Nelson Mandela. The news anchor called him out on this and said Rod was probably living in a whole new alternate universe of facts. He pretty much called him out for straight up lying.
You do have an obligation to at least admit what you did wrong, and you refuse to do that, and you're creating a whole new alternate universe of facts.
Cooper ended his rant by saying it's all just fake. But it's not just news anchors and interviewers who could get on each other's nerves. Second, we have Good Day New York anchor Jim Ryan caught up in an ugly on-air exchange with his own chief reporter, Dick Oliver. It happened while Dick was reporting about a Chelsea building that had been without elevator service for a long while. The reporter interviewed the building's manager when one of the tenants, a bathrobe-clad woman, walked into the interview and said the building owners were not doing enough to fix the elevator problem. Instead of pursuing the interview with this tenant, Dick threw the floor back to Jim Ryan in the studio, who chastised him for it. Jim Ryan basically told Dick Oliver that he didn't have time to teach him how to become a reporter right on air.
Don't let her go away. Does she have a response to that? Is she still there?
What'd you like to know?
A response to what the gentleman said. Well, if I have to teach you how to be a reporter, Ollie, I'll do that later.
Ouch. Next, we have another interview boo-boo, this time featuring Ariana Grande and a sexist radio interviewer. So first, the DJ asked Ariana to choose between using her makeup or her cell phone one last time.
If you could use makeup or your phone one last time, which one would you pick?
Super disappointed with the superficial question, Ariana asked, is this what you think girls have trouble choosing between?
Is this what you think girls have trouble choosing between?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this you?
Yes.
Is it?
But the DJ didn't stop here. He continued prodding and asked Ariana if she could really go for hours without using her phone.
Can you really go anywhere without your cell phone?
Yes.
How long can you go without looking at Twitter?
Many hours.
Hours.
Many hours.
I don't believe it.
Absolutely.
When Ariana answered, the DJ tried to make it like she was an exception to the rule that all girls cannot survive without their phones. So the guy exclaimed, "Listen and learn, ladies." To which Ariana quickly retorted, "No, boys, learn." With that fierce up and down eye roll that's enough to give everyone the shudders.
Ladies, learn.
Yeah.
Listen and learn, ladies.
Boys, learn.
Oh, excuse
Come
me.
on.
You see us on our phones?
Next, we have one of the most iconic moments on sports television when former USA international turned commentator Alexi Lawless went into an all-out tirade against Bruce Arena's team. Lawless, who won the past 96 caps for the US, was obviously frustrated with how the national team was only producing mediocre results. He must have grown so tired of backing the national team and thought some tough love could produce better results. So he called each one by name, including Tim Howard.
Tim Howard. Tim, the Belgium game ended 3 years ago. We need you to save the ball now.
Jeff Cameron.
Jeff Cameron, clean it up or let's get someone who will.
Clint Dempsey.
Clint Dempsey, yeah, you're a national team legend. Now we need you to be a national team leader.
And Josie Altidore.
Josie Altidore. Is this really as good as it gets? Because it's still not good enough.
As a collective, though, he branded them as a bunch of soft, underperforming, tattooed millionaires.
What are you guys going to do? Are you going to continue to be a bunch of soft, underperforming, tattooed millionaires?
That must have been tough to hear from someone that those players really looked up to. Well, Lawless was simply trying to wake them up from being a boring slump by challenging them to step up and play better. Tough love, some would say. But there is no tough love in what transpired between Anderson Cooper, yeah, that guy again, and the woman who calls herself Human Barbie. Next is when Cooper got so disgusted with his guest that he kicked her off his own daytime show. Sarah Burge, who likes to be called the Human Barbie, reportedly spent $500,000 for plastic surgery. Well, it's hashtag her body, her rules. She drew a lot of flack, dragging her 7-year-old daughter into her madness. Apparently, this Human Barbie gave her toddler vouchers for implants and liposuction to be redeemed upon turning 18. Cooper said he tried to be polite, but ended up calling her a dreadful human being. It's clear to see why he was so upset about it.
I honestly have nothing more to talk to you about. I gotta be honest. I try to be really polite to all my guests. I just think you're dreadful, and I honestly don't want to talk to you.
Come on.
Next, we have Rihanna not hiding her disappointment at the seemingly sexist and superficial question from a journalist from the British television network ITN. At a press conference for Riri's movie Battleship, the female reporter asked if she was as happy about her private life as she is with her career.
Things are clearly going brilliantly in your career. I just wondered if you are as happy in your private life.
She went on to ask if Ashton Kutcher was coming over to see her to promote her movie.
And will we be seeing a certain Mr. Ashton Kutcher perhaps making a trip over here?
Visibly annoyed, the singer replied, "Wow, how disappointing was that question?"
Wow, how disappointing was that question?
This prompted the conference moderator to ask if Rihanna would like to move on to another question, to which she said, "Absolutely." But then the actress did address the rude question, saying she's happy and she's single.
Should we move on to another one?
Absolutely. I'm happy and I'm single, if that's what you were really asking.
Now we have another outburst that made feminists and allies pump their fists in the air. While promoting an Avengers movie, one reporter thought it would be a good idea to ask Scarlett Johansson if she wore underwear underneath her costume. Not only is that question really weird and insignificant, but also wildly inappropriate and a little bit creepy, to be honest. Scarlett didn't even think of coming up with a smart, witty reply to that and simply expressed her disgust. She said it was like the third time she had been asked that question, and it's not even worth a proper response.
Now, were you able to wear undergarments?
You're like the fifth person that's asked me
that. Well, no, because
what is going on?
I mean, really, do you just go up to someone and ask if they're not wearing any underwear?
Since when did people start asking each other in interviews about their underwear?
No, because it is such a skin.
Scarlett wasn't having any of it. Next, this time we have a brilliantly executed storm-off that got people wondering if it was indeed scripted. We're talking about the time Joan Rivers walked out in the middle of getting interviewed by CNN. Newsroom host Frederica Whitfield started off by describing Joan's show Fashion Police as mean.
Even with your fashion critiquing, while it's very mean in some ways, people can't wait to hear what you have to say.
It's not mean. I tell the truth.
But the conversation started to escalate when the anchor implied that the comedian was a hypocrite because she talks about ending animal cruelty, but always wears fur.
On the cover of your book, you're wearing a fur, and you knew that there would probably be animal rights activists.
You know, are you wearing leather shoes?
Yeah,
shut up.
I'm talking.
So, 3 minutes into this interview, which frankly felt more like an inquest proceeding, Rivers told the news anchor to be quiet and then stormed off. But not before hurling a final insult saying, "You're not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry."
And you do this, and you're mean, and you're that. You are not the one to interview a person who does humor. Sorry.
Are we serious?
Some people just think it was a promotional stunt, but those eyes tell a way different story. Now let's take a look at when Ben Affleck was invited to Real Time with Bill Maher to advertise his movie Gone Girl. Even though he was there to promote his movie, he spent most of his time in that show arguing with author Sam Harris and show host Bill Maher himself. Affleck was quickly offended when Harris referred to Islam as the mother lode of bad ideas. Maher backed this up by saying that Islam is the only religion that acts like the mafia.
Islam is the mother lode of bad ideas.
It's the only religion that acts like the mafia.
Affleck called the two out for their Islamophobia, to which the other two guys replied that Islamophobia is not even real. Harris tried to justify this by saying everyone should be able to criticize bad ideas.
You're saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. Well, it's not a real thing when we do it.
Right. Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas.
In exasperation, Affleck said the two were not spouting facts, but only ugly things that were not factual. Now we move on and look at Bill O'Reilly making the same mistake in publicly identifying himself as an enemy of Islam. While guesting on The View, he declared that Muslims were responsible for Americans on 9/11.
Why is it inappropriate when 70 families died? What are you
killed us on 9/11.
Co-hosts Joey Behar and Whoopi Goldberg could not believe what they were hearing, so they walked away. Behar said she didn't want to sit there and listen any longer.
I don't want to sit here. I don't want to sit here.
Before joining her, Goldberg spit out something that was bleeped on the final broadcast. This angry outburst gained a lot of traction and was then the talk of the town for months after it happened. Next, we have when SNN6 news anchor Drew Smith didn't like the fact that he looked and sounded like a stuttering clown on the news. While in the middle of presenting a poorly written news script that he couldn't even finish reading, Drew paused for several seconds, sighed, and hung his head in defeat.
Descendants, they will...
He then waves the printed script in front of the camera and asks in frustration, "Who writes this stuff?" We can just imagine the bloodbath that was happening in the newsroom and the control room while this was happening on air.
Who writes this stuff? God, it's amazing. Are you guys lost like I am?
Someone must have lost their writing gig over at SNN6 after this angry outburst. Drew also exposed himself as one of those news presenters who can't even edit scripts on the fly. Next, let's look at another heated exchange that took place while news was being delivered. To be fair though, can you imagine how stressful it must be to be a weatherman in Michigan? Well, all that frustration and cold weather madness took its toll on Gary Frank, a meteorologist for Fox 17. But it actually wasn't the severe storm that dampened his spirits, but actually everyone's complaints about it. So in one broadcast, Frank went off as a response to his colleagues moaning and moping about the bad weather. He literally told the news presenters that they were dragging him down.
I think it's going to be fine.
Good.
Could be worse. Has been worse. Well, because you guys are dragging me down. You guys keep...
He still went on with delivering the weather report, but his frustration did not die out until the very end.
Every time I get done with the 7-day, you guys are like, oh, gosh.
Wow, it must be really tough to be the bearer of bad weather news, right?
Doesn't matter what time I come on. And then you expect me to be chipper for 5 straight hours.
Now, Chad Myers knows this very well. In fact, we have him next in a verbal scrimmage against his news anchor, Carol Costello. Looking like he hadn't slept for weeks, Myers was trying to deliver news on Hurricane Katrina, but he was abruptly cut off and interrupted by Carol, who practically said she doesn't understand all the jargon in Chad's report. In his frustration, Myers literally slammed his papers to the ground and yelled, "Well, if you would let me talk," and the rest was history.
Translate that for us. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
Well, if you would let me talk.
The rawness of 24-hour news. Unlike Frank though, Chad was able to recover his composure, and by the end of the interview, he said something along the lines of, he was just trying to have some fun.
All right.
Carol.
Thank you, Chad.
All right, just having fun with you this morning.
I know.
All right.
It's a stressful time, I know.
But next on the list, Morning Joe host MIKA BRZEZINSKI was definitely not trying to have some fun when she tried to set pages of her script on fire. It was her own way of protesting the media's obsession with Paris Hilton and everything that happens in her life.
Hold on a second. I'm going to make a point.
Lord.
We're not covering this, all right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm done with the Paris Hilton story.
She wasn't able to light the scripts on fire on account of her co-host stopping her, but MIKA was just so fed up about reporting on a celebrity that she got walked up and walked over to the nearest shredder to cut up the paper script.
They were leading with it again.
Are they really?
This is my Paris Hilton story.
What a statement. That is a statement about...
Way to go for refusing to air junk news when people want to hear the actual news. And lastly, we have the most iconic television outburst of all time. Care of America's Next Top Model host, TYRA Banks. The veteran model and host said it all. She doesn't normally yell at girls, but she just had too much of Tiffany Richardson's negativity. So before Tiff was sent home, she heard quite a mouthful from TYRA.
This is not be quiet, Tiffany. Everybody, be quiet. That's what is wrong with you. But you're not. Stop it!
You know the rest. After all, the "we were all rooting for you" moment has stood the test of time, as it is still very much a relevant quote and meme 15 years after the actual outburst took place.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you? Learn something from this.
Yeah, all of that happened 15 long years ago. So as you can see, some news anchors and celebrities get really frustrated and angry at times. At the end of the day, if something happens and you aren't happy with it or think it is wrong, then standing up for what is right is a good idea. I'm sure there are many more of these moments, so we might go and create a part 2. What do you think? Let me know. Thanks for watching the video.